All right, good morning. Welcome back here to Trader Minute. Great to have you aboard. Market's off and rolling here this morning. A little bit of gap up and getting that gap up, getting sold into here a little bit. Nothing too dramatic given what the current market conditions are. But we're going to take a closer look here in a moment. But let's start off with the challenge. We saw a lot of signals yesterday, right? 11. The most that we've ever seen for the challenge algorithm, given this watch list size, and pretty massive. And those bull signals are still intact here this morning for most of the stocks. I haven't checked them all, but anyway, we did go out and make two trades yesterday. We bought some Disney and some Apple. So let's go take a look at the pricing on them. They're each up just under $3 here this morning. Let's get the Apples 2140 and 905. So let's get those filled in here. There we go. So that puts the challenge just at 9,001. So just shy of 10,000 here. I believe we hit 10,000 this morning when Apple was up something like 7 and Disney was up 6. But again, those are those just are intraday prices here. Neither stock is anywhere close to its exit level, and this is something that's a little bit different than other trades that we've seen for the challenge. Something like Disney, it makes a $7 rally. It's gonna be a bullish trigger, or excuse me, it's gonna be hitting its exit targets, right? And just with the ATRs the way they are right now, that isn't the case. And, so we're still looking for some significantly greater upside. Now, can it be wild in the meantime? Yeah, it sure can. Does the candle mean a whole lot? I'm not reading much into it, but overall, this is where they are. We're still looking for, definitely more upside to come into them. I was asked yesterday that, if we hit 10,000, will I just pull the trades off or will I, let them run? The last time we hit 10,000, it was one where I pulled the trades off and, took a little bit of a reset. Those trades ended up doing pretty well afterwards. But it's one of those where I haven't made a decision. I'm not interested in just pulling it off and taking a reset. We've had a month-long reset, so I'm not, I'm not looking for that. But if we do hit a position to where these do need to be taken off for some reason, then I may use a reset as an excuse for it. But that's all it would be. That's all it would be there. So, overall, not adjusting anything here this morning. I will continue to run with both Apple and Disney, and look for them to push us over that 10K hump, and both of them have potential to push us significantly higher than that 10K mark here. Okay, market this morning, it's one of those where I know yesterday we saw the market vibe change, right? We saw the market vibe go bullish. We saw a strong rally into the close. We saw a lot of bullish signals come into the challenge. And one thing to keep in mind is all of those things are technical elements of the market, meaning they're price action things. They are they're metrics. They're not anything that's news based. They're not talking about what the COVID virus is doing. They're not talking about death tolls. They're not talking about new stimulus package from Washington. They're not talking about the British prime minister in the hospital. They're not talking about all of these things. They're not talking about the Chinese data, and all of those things are talked about. You can turn on CNBC or Bloomberg business, Bloomberg there, or Fox Business, and you can get all of those different stories, and they're out there. But what we saw here yesterday was technical in nature, meaning what meant price action, and as far as all the news and everything swirling around it, I said yesterday, look, it's not over. We're not done with the whole COVID thing and coronavirus. Most of you I know are at home and, in the kind of isolation or self quarantine or whatever you want to call it, social distancing, as it continues to affect, people's lives around the world. And some to a greater degree than others, and it's not something that's going away tomorrow. It is going to continue. It's going to be something the markets have to deal with and contend with, here for some time. So, just because we get a bunch of signals, please don't take that and imply something that it doesn't mean. In terms of, it doesn't mean volatility's gone. It doesn't mean that, this is the greatest buying opportunity of a generation, or, it doesn't mean any of those things. It means, hey, we got some short-term signals with a good risk-reward opportunity there, and went for it. And that's all it means. That's all I'm going to pull out of it. That's all I'm going to imply or infer from it, and and go from there. Okay. Speaking of news, we get news quite a bit in the market, and I'm going to pull up IBM. And I'm going to pull up just a clean chart here. And you see this gap right here in October. We see a pretty sizable gap down here. And it's one where, there was news. And in this time right now in the market, there's a lot of news. And when it comes down to news, different people interpret it very differently. And I'm not attempting to tell you how to look at the news, how to, take the news, or what to infer from the news. But I'm going to show you kind of my take on the news and just kind of boil it down to its simplicity, as it is something that I was asked to take a look at. So, when it comes to news, I look at news as one thing. The news explains what happened. Here we had a gap down. The news explains that gap. The news was an earnings report. Explains the gap. That's it. Does the news tell me if the stock's going to go up or down from there? Was there some headline in the earnings report that says, hey, you know what? IBM's going to go down for the next 2 days, and then it's going to go up for a couple days, and then it's going to flatten out? No. I've never seen any news like that. The news explains what happened in the past tense. And the problem with news is it doesn't say what's going to happen now. So in real time, from a real-time trader standpoint, you wake up, you see the gap down, you see the news. The news tells why the stock's gapping down, but does it tell you to buy or to sell or what to do about it? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. We can see times where, here in January, IBM gapped up, right? A nice gap up for IBM. It was good news, positive news from an earnings standpoint. Does it tell us which way the stock's going to go? No. In fact, the stock sold off pretty strongly afterwards. Then we got another piece of news with the gap up. You say, well, the last time we had good news, the stock got sold into. Well, this time we had good news, the stock went up for a few days. The reactions to news can be very different. And there's for 90% of the news that we get out there, it simply explains what happened. And, most of the time it's pretty logical. Okay, IBM missed on their earnings here, here, and here. Okay, makes sense. A little bit of sell. Boom. Okay. Now what? And so I don't look at the news as very helpful in the whole what do I do now scenario. In fact, in many cases, the news can be a big clouder. It can be something that just absolutely clouds any kind of judgment. Is something where the news is stuck on a horror story when you really should be buying, or it's stuck on this great, grand, and wonderful story when you really should be selling. The news doesn't give me anything that says what's the market going to do now. Now, there are news traders out there that watch the headlines. They're reacting almost instantly to the headlines, to a President Trump tweet or something like that. And yes, I acknowledge that that does exist. But from a swing trader or investor standpoint, does it give me much to react to? No, it doesn't. It explains what happened. But I watch the news. I pay attention to the market news. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. But why do I pay attention to the news? Because for me, the news can tell us what is going to happen occasionally. Yes, I know I just said 90% of the time it explains what already happened. It's a past tense hindsight thing. But occasionally, the news will tell us what is going to happen. What do I mean? Well, take a look at the market. Back here, end of February and into March. You think about the news cycle back here. In fact, we had the coronavirus stuff, and the market kind of kept going up until it was, spreading. But think of all the good news that we had during this time. Some of the positives that came out of this. We had the Fed cutting rates. We had, we had unlimited quantitative easing being thrown out there. Things that, are general positives for the economy. What did the market do? It sold them. It sold them. Right down here, we get jobless news. Historically high jobless claims number. What did the market do? It bought it. What did we see on Friday? We saw jobs number. Crazy number. What did the market do? It bought it. Yeah, I know. Initially sold it, but overall bought it. For me, news is about the second derivative. It's about how the market reacts to that news. And if it's good news and the market reacts to the upside, fine. That doesn't tell me much. If it's bad news and the market reacts to the downside, fine. That doesn't tell me much. But when the market gets bad news and reacts to the upside, that tells me a lot. When the market gets good news and reacts to the downside, that speaks volumes. We don't have that happen every day. We don't have it happen with every stock. In fact, most of the news, it's pretty logical. Okay, good news. Okay, boom, stock went up. Bad news, oh, stock went down. Ooh, stock upgraded, stock goes up. Up, stock downgraded, stock goes down. But when you're in a stock that has some very nice technicals, very nice chart and trend, and it gets downgraded and doesn't fall, what tends to happen to that stock? Yeah, it tends to go up. One of the news factors I like to watch are the upgrades and downgrades. And I like to look and go, okay, is this stock rising on the upgrade? Is it falling on the downgrade? If we see it downgraded and rise, something's going on. If we see it upgraded and fall, something's going on. So when we see a reaction that's opposite to the logic, now there's something to look at. If it's just the market that's taking it that way, fine. I don't, pay too much attention. But if the market's fairly flat or the market isn't having much of an influence, and we start to see opposite reactions, that can be very telling. You hear the term bad news bottoms or good news tops, right? A lot of times tops are not set on bad news. Tops are set on good news. A lot of times bottoms, they're not set on bad news. They're set on good news. If this is the ultimate bottom right here for the market, well, this was set on some pretty bad news. for me, that's where the news matters. And so 90% of it is just, oh, okay, it explains things. And I don't look at it and go, well, if I don't know every piece of news and every piece of information out there, then I'm at a disadvantage. No, in fact, sometimes I look at it and I go, hey, I haven't been following as closely. I feel like I understand things a little bit better. Because a lot of times just staring at the news incessantly and just trying to look at the why for everything, what's it do? It just creates information overload, creates biases, emotion, other things that, make trading a little bit tougher. But when the price action is different from what you would expect to see on the news, now you're talking about something that's going on. You're talking about investor behavior that's changing. You're talking about being able to identify something that is priced in. Thanks for hopping on. Have yourselves a fantastic day. I'll be back on with you here this afternoon, and we'll talk to you then. Take care.